Are you ready to invest in Panama? Before you take the plunge, make sure your insurance game is on point. In this episode, we're spilling insider secrets on everything from health coverage to securing your dream property. It's the must-know info that could make or break your Panama adventure. Tune in now and arm yourself with the knowledge to thrive in paradise. Welcome to the Panama Podcast, from dreaming to doing. I'm your host, Melissa Darnay, an American who's been living her someday, every day since 2012. Get ready for a weekly dose of Panama sunshine and inspiration, from hilarious expat adventures to insider tips on living, investing, and having a blast in Panama. Curious to learn more? Go to choosepanama.com and snag your free copy of Panama Uncorked. Joining me today is Julio Luque, the risk manager and insurance broker with J2L Seguros. Julio, what inspired you to pursue a career in insurance, and how did you get started in the industry?
Well, before I was an insurance broker, I was a banker. And during that time, I was helping the bank to manage the property and lower the risk. That's what I learned about risk management, was in a bank. And I realized that the bank could make enough money by keeping well-done insurance on their properties or different risks they have. And that's how I got started on an insurance business. After that, I started working on hotels, with managing 5 hotels in Panama. And there was a time when the owners, they were having some problems with insurance. And I decided to do what I call an insurance audit on all their properties and everything that can happen on a hotel. And then I got called by a big car dealer company, and they wanted me to have, in every single branch, someone explaining the insurance before buying a car.
Okay. And I know that you went to school, high school, and college in the U.S. You were born in Panama, but went to the U.S. for high school and college. Can you tell us about how your experience studying in the U.S., how it shaped your professional life?
The first thing that I realized when I went to the States for the first time was the way business is done in the U.S., how proper everything is aligned.
Truth.
And it's very easy to find information before you make a decision. It's like the information was there.
Right.
So it was very easy to have clients asking more questions that you are used to because they are knowledge.
Right.
So I always tell people, Mr. Julio, sorry that I'm asking you too many questions, but I keep saying, the more you ask, the better I'm going to sound, because you give me more time to talk more about my expertise.
And how do you think that's different in Panama?
In Panama, people are very relying on who they call. If someone said,
it's more relationship based.
Yes.
Okay.
If you need an insurance, say, well, call Mario. Mm-hmm. That's all they need. Uh-huh. They don't do the due diligence or reading the quotes or asking you questions. So I really like to work with people who really take their time to read, ask me for explanation, comparison.
You know, you make a good point. We manage quite a few properties, and the first thing I always do is I call you because I know that you're going to go get several quotes, your team in the office, and that the client can choose from several different quotes, and then if they have questions, you can explain it. But a lot of times I think, especially being from the U.S., we just know, we've been told you have to have insurance. So therefore, I'm just going to check off that box and get the insurance. How do you think it's different being an insured person in Panama versus the U.S.?
I get this, for some reason, a lot of people that come to Panama, they have this biased idea that here you don't need much. They feel that, no, I can handle that because we don't have too many laws that will make you always have insurance. Here, insurance is something that you ask because you really think you need it. But as time goes by, the law has been changing. So now it's more like a requirement, not an issue of, I think I should have it.
Right. And a lot of buildings, like the building I'm in, it's a requirement to have multi-risk insurance. It's not optional, it's a requirement.
Yes. And that's very good. That law was passed about 15 years ago, and is to protect everyone.
Right.
Because to be honest, if a building falls down, you need everybody pennies to put the building back together.
Exactly.
Or even to get their money back.
Right.
So having everybody put their pot on the table,
right,
you got more options to secure your investment.
And knock on wood, that won't happen here. No. But something that does happen, let's say there's a fire in a unit, in a building like this, we have apartments and you have many floors. If there's a fire in one apartment and it affects my apartment, then I'm dependent upon that person's insurance to kind of make me whole again.
Yes.
To fix everything.
Yes. And I use this a lot. Our laws here in Panama are very more flexible than in the U.S.
Mm-hmm. That's a good word, flexible.
Yes. Yes, when we're in camera, And but having an insurance, the administration will make it easier on everybody. Mm-hmm. Because if you have to go through a lawsuit, that can take months or even years.
Right.
So since that law has passed, that it's mandatory to have insurance on your property and liability on your contents insurance, which is the easiest way, because you can buy liability for your property.
And really, and you know this coming from the U.S., insurance here is ridiculously cheap compared to insurance in the U.S. And especially, I know you lived in Miami. Insurance in Miami is, I don't know, it's a house payment. Here, insurance, if your apartment is $350,000, your insurance is only $350 a year. I mean, that shouldn't really stop anyone.
Yes. Well, remember that Panama is a country that have very few weather situations. That's what makes it easy.
Right. No natural disasters.
Natural disaster is something that we have not experienced. Panama is a very easy place to live because we don't have that many threats.
Right. Yeah.
Our threats are people.
So fewer threats, fewer natural disasters, a lower wage rate. So if something happens, the cost to have that fixed is lower, a lot lower than the U.S. And then also because there's fewer lawsuits, I think a smaller percentage goes to the lawyers, for having the lawsuits. I know,
Correct.
For example, in medical insurance, a lot of the insurance goes to pay the lawyers because of the lawsuits.
Yes, it's correct. It's very few times when I have any problems with fire insurances compared to someone has a loss, like in a car. In a car is typical. That's why all insurance companies offer you law assistance, because they know that going to court might take months. Mm-hmm. But by sending a lawyer on your behalf, it will increase the possibility of them not having to pay and going after the real person who is at fault.
Okay. So that's in most of the insurance. I didn't know that. That's something that's great to know.
Yes, yes. Always make sure that you have your legal assistant included.
As part of the policy.
Part of the policy.
Julio, what do you think are some of the cultural differences between Panama and the U.S. that you've noticed? And how has that impacted you because you work with so many North Americans?
Well, like I said before, we in Panama take things for granted sometimes, And something that I like from the Expats, they always ask. They always know that we have to make sure we are in a new background. We don't know that many people, so I rather feel comfortable and secure than just trusting my instincts. But Panamanians have been learning. Panama is a very young country, and with the amount of expats coming from different parts of the world, we are learning that we have to follow the rules.
And also, I think it's important to note that the Constitution was done in the 70s. So if you look at the Constitution, it's, 50 years old, whereas most other countries are a lot older. So they've had a time for the Supreme Court to sort of test those laws, test the rules, flesh out what that means. In Panama, because it is a young country, there's not that much time. So it's a young country and it's a smaller country as well.
Yes, and even from my childhood, we were so exposed to the Americans that being a kid, I remember that you can tell some streets were cleaner than other streets because the ones that were cleaner were patrolled by the U.S. That was so funny. And we learned.
Yeah.
We learned. I remember in Colón. Colón was a clean city. It was so small that it was very easy for the army to help us understand what the laws were. For example, if you threw garbage out of your car in the city of Colón, no one would say anything. But no one would roll their windows down as soon as they enter the Canal Zone area.
Oh, because in the Canal Zone that was patrolled by the U.S. military, you don't throw anything out of your car.
Yes.
What do you think makes Panama an attractive place for North Americans to live or retire, and what sets it apart from other Latin American countries?
The first thing is the dollar and our banking system, and our experience with the U.S. always here in the previous years. A lot of people always thought that we were a U.S.
state. Yes.
And that makes it easy. Well, the canal, and Panama is so easy to live. We are so used from a cultural background that we are not one type of person.
That's correct.
We are group of Chinese, group of Greeks, group of Italians. So we had to learn to work for the best of each other. And I think having in the expats, they realized that. I have spoken to many expats and say, Julio, I never expected so many Chinese people to know English, to know the U.S. They were born here.
Right. It really is a melting pot.
Yes, it's a melting pot.
Julio, let's go back to insurance. What are the most common types of insurance policies that expats in Panama need?
The first one is medical.
Okay.
I will always suggest to review your medical coverages, because a lot of expats, they say, "Oh, I have coverage international." I say, "Yeah, but you have to really understand what is the extent of your coverage, because it could be only for 3-month period, but not living in the country."
And that is something I would say a lot of people do is you get your policy, you think you're covered, and you really don't read it. You stick it in a drawer somewhere. So if someone were to be here 3 months on one day and their U.S. policy didn't cover them here, then all of a sudden they're paying out of pocket.
Yes. Everyday medical expenses here in Panama are very low.
Correct.
Medicine, you go to a doctor. But just when you have to be recruited in a hospital, things change very much. It could be as high as in the U.S. So it's very wise to always have a very good hospitalization coverage. Okay. And if you travel more than 3 times in a year, either to Colombia, Venezuela, Cuba, anywhere, or even back to the U.S. or Canada, always mix it with your travel insurance. Because if you are retired, your premium is going to be a little higher than normal, or probably than previously from your home. So by having that mix on it, you will lower the deductible out of your pocket, because this is an emergency type of.
Yeah, and you said something interesting. You were talking about hospitalization insurance. Is there such a thing as just hospitalization insurance without the normal everyday health insurance?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's great to know.
Yeah, and more toward international companies.
Okay. So Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Yes. There are at least 5 different companies. Probably they are not registered in Panama as a company because Panama is so small. But what they do is they make an alliance to be able to offer their services here and have an office, because that is the more important thing. When you have to use a medical insurance, you need to call someone. You need to make sure that you have a company number, a company email, that you can work your claim from here.
Now, let's talk about hospitalization insurance, because this is a question I get a lot. Because a lot of people who are here just part of the year, which is a big part of my client base, they have their own insurance in Canada, in the US, and then they come here. So if they were just to get the hospitalization insurance, what happens with pre-existing conditions? Is that covered as well, or is it just more expensive type of insurance?
It depends on what type of pre-existing condition. The first thing is to be excluded, is for sure. But depending on the history and the information that you can provide from your doctors, it can be analyzed. And that's why I always suggest to use international companies.
Okay.
Because by having an international company, they can understand what were your pre-existing condition in the U.S. and probably have knowledge of the hospital, your doctor. The information will help you to make sure you get the best out of your insurance.
Okay, that's great advice. Julio, how long ago did you start your business, your insurance business?
1999.
Okay, 25 years ago.
Yes.
And I bet you've seen a lot of change during that time. How has the insurance industry in Panama evolved over the past 25 years?
Plenty. Before, insurance was something that we required by a bank because you have a mortgage, you have a loan on a car.
I want to stop you for a second because this is something a lot of North Americans aren't used to. In the U.S., if you get a mortgage, you need what they call title insurance or mortgage insurance. And so that's a separate insurance. And here you get life insurance. So if I'm going to go get a mortgage, they're actually going to take out a life insurance policy on me. And then if I die before I pay off the loan, the bank gets the money. And that's how because they don't want the property. So that's what he's talking about. That's where it started. So go ahead and continue.
Yes. And sometimes in other countries, you have to have two.
Two life insurance policies.
No, two property insurance. One for the administration of the building or the person making the building, and one for the bank. Here you can use the same one. So it's very easy for you to have your life insurance cover not only your property but only your family. The same policy you can do life for the mortgage, life for your family, or even an investment as a savings account.
Right. And that it's been hard in the past for expats to get mortgages. And this year I've seen a change that now it's becoming a little easier. It's possible for the first time to get an actual bank mortgage. So this could become more and more relevant.
Yes. Well, I think it's the technology. I have helped many expats to get a mortgage. And for example, I go to a bank and the bank manager say, well, you bring me a letter from your bank, but doesn't say much, only say that you have X amount. How can I know that you were a good client of the bank?
Right.
Now with technology, you can actually talk to a manager. And some of the banks in the state even have that now.
Right.
They have a department who helps people talk to banks and say, yes, Mr. Smith has been our client for many years. And so the bank is more lenient to, instead of saying, okay, you have to put 30% down, now is 20 or 10.
Right.
And of course, the amount, the value of the property against the down payment that you can make will make that easier. 40% is less risk for the bank.
Exactly. Do you know if we're going down a rabbit hole, but do you know if the banks at this point are pulling credit, for example, from the US or from Canada? Are they pulling credit or are they just looking for reference letters?
Reference letters.
Okay.
Or someone they can talk to.
Okay.
But what I have used is when I go to a bank with an expat, I ask the person, will you make your direct deposit to this bank? That is
from
a plus.
From your
Yes.
work, from your job in the US.
Yes. Or your Social Security.
Or your Social Security.
Yeah. If it goes direct to a bank, the bank will never say no.
Look
Yes.
at that little tip you've learned right here. Julio, what challenges do you face as an insurance broker in Panama?
Well, we still a very small country.
And how does that make it harder?
It's harder because if we are 4.5 million people in Panama, then you have to take out the underage or the elderly, and then the working mass is probably 1.8 million. That is a very small market. But since we have having so many expats in Panama, it has brought more companies to come to Panama
Right.
and offer their services. So now there are a lot of brokers, but you have to understand that some brokers are just selling. They are not advising. They are not analyzing. That's the difference. And that is my biggest problem. Sometimes, Julio, how much is for this insurance? X amount of money. But that's like $50 more than somebody else. I say, well, if you want, I can read it and I can tell you why you're missing. And then balance. Oh, wow. And at the end, you're going to be surprised. After I start explaining them and say, you know what? I need more.
And I think there's a lot of people do understand your 25 years of experience is worth its weight in gold because you've been through everything. You've seen everything. You've seen the changes and you've seen all the bad things can happen, but you can also know how to navigate some of the more challenging things, like maybe getting an insurance company to pay when it's a little bit iffy.
Exactly. There's always ways to do it. I always tell my client, you can call me anytime, text me, write me, ask me the questions before. If you tell me the real story before I start working with a claim, it'd be easier for me to fix it.
That's right.
But if you let the process go through, I cannot back up.
That's right.
And to be honest, now when you mention the legal aspect of Panama, insurance companies are more restrict now. We have a bureau, Superintendencia de Seguros, and they are doing a great job keeping all the insurance company online.
Okay.
And with enough reserves.
And with the oversight.
Yes, and it makes it more easy for us to choose. Probably 10 years ago, depending on the risk that you ask me, inside my head, I will decide which company I don't trust. No? Yeah. Now it's easier.
Yeah.
Now the law, the government of Panama had put a lot of effort into making sure that the Bureau of Insurance is doing their job.
Oh, good.
So for you, okay, I'll give you an example. Probably 10 years ago, you could open an insurance company with $2 million. 15 years ago. Now, you need at least $10 million in reserve. That makes a big difference. That would avoid people buying insurance from companies that are not
solvent. Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
What do you think some misconceptions are that people have about insurance in Panama?
Claims.
Okay, give me an example.
Yeah. For example, you have an accident.
Like a car accident.
A car accident.
Okay.
And you decide to let me know a week later.
Okay.
Yeah. So now all the insurance companies have a road assistance plan for free. Why? You text them. I'm right here under the supermarket. This lady just backed into me. Okay. They go there. And of course, he's going to try to save you because the money will come out of the pocket of the insurance. And that will help you avoid that the other person switches the story. The language barrier is very hard on the expat. But by having someone behind or someone protecting your interests is easier.
Right.
I have seen it.
Right.
I had seen him say, Julio, I lost. What do you mean you lost? Yes, he hit me from behind. And the story, of course, says that I was backing up. That is the biggest challenge that I have in with Expat. You have to notify and you have to try to put yourself in our shoes. Our laws are in Spanish. So every time you feel that you have a trade, you have to try to understand that you have to be in Spanish.
Right.
And you have to find anywhere, Google, lawyer or a broker, someone who helps you understand what they're writing on that piece of paper.
Right. And especially now with Google Translate, you can actually take a picture of it with your phone, and Google Translate's free and it'll translate it for you. But I know one of the things I've always liked about you is you are very available. So if you call Julio, he's there, he has a staff, someone is there to help, especially when you're on the side of the road and need something because someone has done something they shouldn't have.
Yes. Well, to be honest, I have to do that because it would save me time. If I don't have, if I'm not there to understand from the beginning, it's gonna take me 3 times more to try to solve the claim. But if we work together from the beginning,
Right.
it's easier. I don't think the excuse of the language is sometimes is a problem. You really need to follow the rules. And sometimes, like I said from the beginning, sometimes people think that because they are in Panama, things are easier. It's the same. It's just like the story I told you about throwing the garbage, the same thing. People, when they're in the U.S., they are more strict.
Right.
They
Correct.
come here and they think it's party time. No.
What are the different types of insurance that you and your company offer?
Okay, we have all different licenses. We have licenses for life and health is one license. Property license will be for cars, houses, bonds, and we have all licenses, and we do all kind of insurances, local or abroad. Sometimes I have to use, for example, I have many clients that they own yachts, planes, and I have to find that insurance in London, and we have that here.
Okay.
We have that here. It's just a matter of finding the right company and the right person to find it. But we have everything.
That's great to know. We do have a lot of clients who always talk about bringing their boat here. So that's, especially if they want to reflag it here.
Yes. Hey, I have helped clients. Julio, I'm right here in Jamaica. I love this boat. How can I take it down to Panama? So I find an insurance company that will cover the travel from all different islands before they get to Panama. Because even on the sea, there are rules and there are barriers or which water you can go to. And not all insurances will cover you.
Interesting.
Yes, sometimes you have to buy 3 different coverages just to get to Panama.
To get to Panama.
And then what I try to do is to make sure that after I get that coverage, it will stay in Panama for the whole year. So you don't have to buy
Another one.
An additional, yes.
Okay. How do you stay informed about changes and trends in the insurance market?
Well, the internet is very good. I remember a couple of years, probably 10 years ago, there were insurance company. They always offer seminars on different insurances or new coverages. But I like to go online and read what's going on in other countries. And sometimes I have done it. Being a risk manager, I have done insurance contracts for big companies where the insurance company say, Julio, what do you mean? You can do this. You can cover this. With this coverage, you can access this type of rules, because everything is not always boxed, if you want to have a business that no one has ever done in Panama, it's easier to insure it than to register the business in the government. You'd be surprised.
Huh. Yeah. What is the most rewarding part about working as an insurance broker in Panama, especially because so many of your clients are expats?
Usually when someone say, thank you, Julio, wow, I never thought we could make it through, but I'm going to tell you a story. Many years, someone gave me a call and said, Julio, I need you to stop at Paitia Hospital because we just landed at the airport and I need an English-speaking person because he had a heart attack. So I went to the hospital and I went through the paperwork that he has, and I found a company that I had never seen from Denmark. And I wrote to the company saying, I have Mr. here, and I need your assistant to help him because he cannot talk. So they were, oh, thank you. And the next day, he received a bouquet of flowers. And 2 days later, someone called the hospital, and it was so nice that the company said, Mr. Julio, we have never had a claim in Panama. And you make that so easy for us. You found a doctor. You quoted the expenses in a way that we understood. And you know what? That company came to Panama. And I used that for many years.
Oh, good. That is a good story.
Yeah. That is the best part.
What advice would you give to somebody looking to purchase their first insurance policy in Panama?
Always trust someone.
Okay.
That is the first thing.
Okay.
You can ask for many quotes, but I think that trust comes from an experience. So if you have 5 quotes, trust the person who tells you the bad part first, not the nice thing.
Right.
Don't trust when the cost.
Right.
Make sure the person explain you the coverages and the downside of the coverages.
Right.
Because it's very easy to say, okay, you have this coverage, but it'd be very easy if I can tell you, okay, I'm gonna cover everything that is not excluded. You know,
Right.
and when I explain this to a person, it's easier. You cannot do these 3 things, and everything else is covered.
And I've learned so much about insurance working with Julio, because I think as an average consumer, I didn't really know much about insurance before I landed in Panama 12 years ago. But over the course of the years, as we've had different issues with different clients and I've been involved, I've learned, if you're, especially with property damage, if there's going to be some property claim, there has to be an incident. And just explaining that now, I'm better able to explain that to my clients when they buy insurance so that they understand it. So when they go to buy insurance, it makes a little easier sense.
Yes.
Julio, what do you think is the most important thing people should understand about insurance in Panama?
They should understand that it's not very different from the U.S. It's the same system. It's just the way you present the claims. Panama is so small that is companies, they have to make sure that every single claim is well prepared, well documented, because we don't have all-inclusive kind of coverages, you know? And like I said before, you have to start like robbery, for example. People think that robbery is anything. No, I have to see that the door was broken. If you left the door open, that's not
robbery.
That's not a robbery, you know? And that part sometimes is hard for them to understand. You know, it's like I told you before. Julio, someone banged into me 2 weeks ago. Where's the report?
Right.
No. I just sent you a quote. Yeah, but I had to know where that happened. Companies always try to avoid fraud.
Right.
And the only way to do that is to have everything well documented. If you document well your claim, you're never going to have a problem.
And that's great advice in so many different aspects.
In all aspects of insurance.
If you've gotten value out of today's podcast, we'd appreciate it if you would leave us a comment, as this helps us grow our channel. And as always, if you want to get more content like this about Panama, be sure to press the subscribe button. Julio, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, how is the best way for them to contact you?
Internet, WhatsApp, email, a web page.
I'm going to go ahead and put all of his contact information in the description below, but I'll also put it on screen here so you can go ahead and contact him easily. Julio, it's been a pleasure learning about insurance today. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome. Thank you.
Cheers. See you next time.